Hi, it's Brian Yates. Today on DIY Like a Master, we're going to take a look at brakes, inspection, rotors, calipers, pistons, and so we can determine the brake pads, rotors, calipers, and pistons are all good for reuse or replacement. Okay, well, we got the vehicle in the air already. Got it set up on jack stands, secured on a big heavy bumper jack. So we're going to step over here. I've got some tools already laid out. We're going to disassemble this left side and inspect the brakes to see what we've got and what we got to work with. All right, get this camera set up here. Okay. What most mechanics do when you go into the garage, they take off your tire to look down in here, and they can see the pads down in there. You can't see them on the camera, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to disassemble this assembly, show you what the pads are, what they look like, and when they need to be replaced. Okay, so let's start by taking off the caliper. Get a 13 mil wrench on this. Get these bolts broke loose. Get them taken out. Still tight. There we go. Okay, now we got the bolts out. Slide it on. There's some sticks. That's not good. It should be easy to move freely like this one. Yeah. Have to make sure we get it lubricated. Now what I normally do is take a tool, stick it down in here, pull back on the caliper, release the pressure against the rotor, so we pull the caliper off freely and easily. And then caliper slides right off. I always try to set it up. It's a good idea to set it up here on top. If you're going to do a whole lot, you might want to get a hook and hang it down from here, so you don't want any pressure on this hose. Especially when they get old like this thing is, these hoses can crack and tear at the fittings. We don't want that. Add insult to injury by tearing something up while we're trying to do repairs. Okay, so we have our pads here. We have our outboard pad and our inboard pad. On this particular model, they slide into the caliper bracket, and the inside pad surface looks like this, where it's been running against the rotor. This is your backing plate, where the pistons push against it. You see right here where the pistons press against it. What we're looking at is the pad surface, and that's the surface from the backing plate into the pressure against the rotor. Now, commonly we want to look for anything that's less than a quarter of an inch from here to here, or in this case, set this one up here for a second, get this one slide out. Now see, on this one we have what's called a squeaker tab right here. This tab is a warning device. When the brakes get down to this, it makes a squeaking sound every time you push on the brakes. This one is very close to making that squeaking. Mechanics like to use a rule of thumb, and that is if the pad is thinner than the backing plate, they need to be replaced. That means it's less than a quarter of an inch thick. And we could see that this one is thinner than the backing plate. See it right there? So these pads do need to be replaced. And the second thing the mechanic's going to do is they're going to look at the rotor. Design thickness was preset by the manufacturer. Okay. And I went ahead and got the specifications from Google on this. Very simple to do. You go on to Google, put down rotor specifications, and in this case, it's rotor specifications for a '98 Ford Explorer. And they came me back, and saying brand new, 26 millimeters. Minimum thickness, which is the thickness from side to side, that is allowed to be by law, is 24.4 millimeters. Now they have specific tools for this that mechanics use, but I don't happen to have one handy, so I'm going to use my standard digital caliper. Get the 0 set there. I'm going to open it up. I'm going to take a look, see how thick this rotor is. Suck it out. Slide in there and push it up nice and tight. Okay, now I have one. Okay, and it says it's 26.2, so we know that can't be right. Let's take a look. Can't be thicker than what it started out. Of course, the mechanics one would have a pointer on each end down here, so you just touch the edges. I don't have to have that. So I can only go by what I've got. Okay. Try that again. Okay, this is measuring it in at 24.6. Okay. So, no, it's not up here. So. I moved it. Anyway, the reading will come up showing you like this, 24.61. It was 24.62, but I moved it when I took it off. So we know that this one will not be able to be turned or retrued, because after they cut the metal off of here to make it straight and true again, it's going to be below 24.2. Okay, moving on. Turn that off. All right. Next thing you're going to want to inspect is the sliders. Now this has just got a rubber boot over it. Pull the rubber boot loose, and we can see that there's lots of rust in here. A lot of rust in here. Very low on lubricant. That's not good. So when you get the new pads, the new rotors, you're going to want to get you some brake grease. Brake grease goes on the slider and inside. Now, we pull this down. We check for defects in the boot. These boots are not torn. This one can be used again. So let's slide this in, take a look at the other one. Pop the boot off. Pull slider out. And this is one that was sticking. Oh, yeah. She got more than just rust. It's got grime in there, like buildup. That's rust and grime buildup from moisture getting in to the cylinder. That's what's stopping it up. That's what's making it work hard. And it's also very dry. There again, we pull the boot down. It's inspected. No tears. So this boot can be reused. Now you can get replacements at the auto parts store. So we know that. It's real stiff. I'll have to clean that out before I put brakes on it. Okay. Next thing you want to do is you want to look at your wear plates. Down here, you got a wear plate. It's just a piece of spring stainless steel. There you go. This wear plate. Pad rides on here. Sits down in the groove like this. And this keeps the wear down from ending up down in here in this groove. So these can slide back and forth freely. Any vibration, any motion, it'll end up wearing here and not the carriage or the caliper bracket. And there should be, on a Ford, there's two of them. So we got the lower one, snap that back in. Then we have the upper one. And that did not want to come out either. All right. Okay, now you can see where the pad was sitting on this one, where it's been sitting there wearing. Okay, now you can get new hardware kits, or you can, in some places, they sell brake pads with these hardware already in it, these replacement wear plates. I always recommend getting new wear plates because you're putting new brakes on old wear plates. They could stick in this little notch or groove where the old pad was sitting. and cause the brakes to have a malfunction. We don't want malfunctions. We want them to work properly. Brakes is one of the #1 things required on an automobile to go, because if you can't stop, you shouldn't be going. Get in there straight. There it is. Okay, so then in order to replace a rotor, you'd have to go in here. You have to remove the caliper bracket. And then these bolts here and here are holding this caliper bracket in place. Break that down there. Break it loose up here. Okay, let's see. It's gonna be nice. Yes, it's gonna be nice. Bolt's gonna come out. You always want to keep a hand on it too, because number one, you keep that bolt lined up better, and number two, you keep it from falling on your foot. Okay, now we got brake caliper bracket. On the bolts, you're going to see this orange substance. This is known as thread lock or Loctite. This is put on from the manufacturer. You can pick up thread lock at your local parts house. We can tell by the color that this is orange, and the thread lock you're going to want to use would be orange. The color on a lot of thread locks determines the strength. So if you change the color, you could change the strength. Some are like yellow and blue, could be lower than this, and red would be much stronger than this. You know, you use some of the reds, you're not going to get the bolt back out. So you want to use one that's designed for removal without having to heat the surfaces to get the bolts out. Okay, now at this point, that frees up the rotor. I have a nut on here that keeps the rotor in place for working. I'll remove that nut real quick. It's just one of the wheel nuts. Okay, so, and this is a slide-on rotor. It just slides on. Surface here fits against the axle surface here. When you do replacing rotors, you're going to want to clean this surface here to make sure it's nice and smooth, clean. Even on used rotors, you don't probably want to clean that. That keeps this rotor nice and straight and true with the axle. And it also gives you a chance and an opportunity to kind of look things over and inspect the bearings and CV boots, things like that. Okay, so get this down here. And we'll move over to the other side and take a look at it. All right, now we got everything moved over to the right side. I'll turn the wheel to the left. Allows me clearer access to the bolts and things of that nature. Oh, that bolt's that's not all the way on. Well, that'll work. Okay, so we're going to take this side apart to see what it looks like. Back these off. Same little snug. Alright, there you go. Put two of that in here. Against the caliper, pull the caliper back a little bit. Release pressure on those brake pads. Oh, got another one that's almost stuck. A little bit more on that bottom. Alright. Alright, there's the caliper. Get that working. And it won't stay there. I'll put it right there. Stay. Okay, so again, we're looking at brake pads. On this side, we got a lot more on the back pad than we do on the front pad. And let's see. Thicker on the top than it is on the bottom, so that's uneven wear. Let's take a look here. That's not loose. That's nice and loose. So what we have is an uneven piston. This piston, one piston is sticking a little bit, probably this one, and it's pushing more on this one when we're braking, causing these pads to wear unevenly. There's a piece of sandpaper, maybe you can see it a little bit better. Ouch. Oh, I got me a Scotch-Brite pad here. I need to clean up that backing plate a little bit so you can tell the difference between the rotor pad and the backing plate. Maybe. There you go. There, now you can see the backing plate a little better. That helps a little bit. And I do all this live. There's no script, no AI. Everything's live. Okay, so what we're looking at here, this is your backing plate, this black piece. This piece here in the middle is your pad, and this is the rotor. Same thing up here. You got your backing plate, your pad, and your rotor on both this side as well. What I was talking about, you see, much thicker here than it is here. That usually signifies that this piston is not pushing or is hung up and not pushing as hard as this piston, which causes the pads to wear unevenly because it's squeezing tighter here than it is here. That means that you probably have a caliper failure or getting ready to have a major caliper failure. Okay, so here again, we get that pad out of there. It has a wear bar and about the same thickness as the others were. Tape measure. Alright. I'm saying if you don't have a tape measure, you can always just take the two pads, stick them together until the pad backing plate is indeed thicker than the pad. If I can hold that there so you can see it. Probably not. But that backing plate is thicker than that pad. And like I say, the back one is obviously offset. We go this way, it's thinner than the backing plate. Up here, it's actually the same, actually thicker than the backing plate. So this pad is definitely wearing uneven. That's not good. Okay, here again, check the slider. Slider works. Slider's working here, so it'd be easily to re-grease them. Put them right back in. On this side, I'm not going to bother taking the bracket off. We know the sliders work. We've already showed how you inspect them. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and... Wow, there's a big groove right there. I wish I had the right tool to measure that, but I don't. So all we can do is get a basic on it. And the back is very rough. See if we can get around here and see that. This is very, very rough back here. High spot right in the middle, and a very low spot on the outside right there. So I'm going to say that this rotors definitely need to be replaced on both sides. And further, another thing we can look at when you're checking your brakes, each of the pistons is a dual piston caliper setup, manufactured by Ford for Ford vehicles. In this case, Toyota has their own system. General Motors, Chrysler, they all have their own setups, but they're pretty much the same. Okay, so in the pistons, you push these in and out. When you're doing the brakes, we'll show you that later when we do the brakes. We have a seal right here. It is a dust cover. and here, and there's another seal back here in the back on both of these. It allows it to move in and out and keep the brake fluid in. We have our spring retainer right here that pushes down on the brakes and keeps them in proper alignment. So we see here we have dry underneath both pistons. It's not clean, but it is dry. But we're also talking about brakes, and they do get dirty. And if you don't believe me, look at my hands. Okay. Anyway, so if you had a damaged seal here, or a torn seal, or one that was pulled out or off, and the dirt was allowed to get in between this piston, which is usually an aluminum hybrid alloy, and this cast steel, it could make that piston stick. And I am seeing it's not all the way out, but there's a gap right there. But that might be why they're sticking. These don't push in real easily either. But I'm going to say for the most part it's okay, but one way to be sure would be to, when I do the brakes, to press it all the way in. But usually when you have an uneven wear like that, you're going to want to replace the calipers. And you can buy calipers as a complete setup, where you get a new carriage bracket, caliper bracket as they call it, or caliper carriage, and the caliper together, and just bolt the assembly on there with new pads in there. And of course, re-bleed your brakes and things like that, which we will address at another time. So, okay, so at this point, we're going to call this one good, because I can see it looks like this rotor is going to be no good. So we turn it on, 0 meter. It's real high right there, so I'm not going to get a true reading. I need that specialized tool that I don't have. Let's see. Yeah, see, it's 25.99, and that's on the high spot. It's lower here. We could see this lower. Oh, push that back in. We can see this lower. You can see a gap right here. I can stick my fingernail. So we know 25.99. This is an untold amount of lower, thinner than that. I'm going to say this rotor is probably bad, without having a nice, expensive snap-on tool to check that. Okay, so that's pretty much your front brake inspection for a four-wheel drive 1998 Ford Explorer. And like always, I'd like to get to like and subscribe if you could. Help us get this message to other DIYers that would like to know how to inspect brakes. And so we thank you, and y'all have a fine day.